February 4th, 1974, 9:15 p.m. A 19-year-old college student is in her Berkeley apartment with her fiancé. They're planning a quiet evening, maybe studying, maybe watching TV. Then the door explodes inward. 3 armed figures storm in, screaming, weapons drawn. They beat the fiancé unconscious with a wine bottle, drag him outside. The neighbors hear the chaos, see a young woman being thrown into a car trunk, kicking, screaming, begging for help, and then she's gone, vanished into the California night. Her name is Patricia Hearst, granddaughter of William Randolph Hearst, one of the wealthiest media moguls in American history. Within hours, her kidnapping becomes the biggest story in the country. Within weeks, it becomes something nobody saw coming. And within 2 months, Patty Hearst will be holding a machine gun, robbing a bank, calling herself Tania, fighting for the very people who kidnapped her. This isn't just a kidnapping case. It's a psychological labyrinth that still haunts us 50 years later, because the question at the heart of this story isn't just who took Patty Hearst, it's whether she ever really came back. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most controversial cases in American history. You'll learn how a radical terrorist group turned an heiress into a revolutionary, how the FBI hunted them across California in a manhunt that ended in flames, how psychiatrists, lawyers, and the public debated whether Patty was a victim of brainwashing or a willing accomplice, and why, even after her trial, her prison sentence, and her presidential pardon, the truth remains maddeningly elusive. Because in the Patty Hearst case, nothing is what it seems, and everyone has a theory, but only one thing is certain. On that February night, a young woman disappeared, and someone else took her place. Let's start with who Patty Hearst was before that door burst open, before the guns, before the SLA, before Tania. She's born in 1954 into American royalty. The Hearst family, her grandfather, William Randolph Hearst, built a media empire, newspapers, magazines, radio stations, the kind of wealth that shapes politics, influences presidents. The Hearst Castle in San Simeon, that's her family, opulence beyond imagination. Patty grows up in Hillsborough, California. Exclusive, gated, manicured lawns and private schools. She's the third of 5 daughters. Her father, Randolph Hearst, runs the San Francisco Examiner. The family is conservative, Republican, old money, traditional values. Patty attends a Catholic girls' school, gets good grades, not exceptional, but good enough. She's quiet, reserved, not the type to make waves. Friends describe her as sheltered, naive even, raised in a bubble where the real world doesn't intrude. In 1972, she enrolls at the University of California, Berkeley, studying art history. It's the early 70s. Berkeley is a hotbed of activism, anti-war protests, feminism, Black power. The counterculture is everywhere, but Patty isn't part of it. She's not political, doesn't go to rallies, doesn't join movements. She's just a college kid trying to figure out her life. She meets Stephen Weed, a grad student, teaching assistant in philosophy. He's 23. She's 17 when they start dating. Her parents aren't thrilled, but they tolerate it. By 1973, Patty and Stephen are engaged, living together in a modest apartment in Berkeley, modest by their standards. Anyway, it's a ground floor unit, easy access, no security, just a regular apartment in a regular neighborhood. And that's where the story begins, because on February 4th, 1974, that apartment becomes a crime scene. Let's talk about the people who kicked in that door. The Symbionese Liberation Army, the SLA. If you've never heard of them, you're not alone. They were small, fringe, radical, even by Berkeley standards, but they were deadly serious. The SLA was founded in 1973 by Donald DeFreeze, but let's call him by the name he chose, Cinque, after a leader of a slave rebellion. DeFreeze is black, born in Cleveland, a life marked by poverty, crime, and prison. By his 20s, he's in and out of jail, robbery, assault. In 1969, he's sent to Soledad Prison in California, and that's where his radicalization begins. He meets other inmates, black revolutionaries, reads Marxist literature, starts seeing himself as a soldier in a war against oppression. When he's transferred to a lower security facility, he escapes. 1973, he surfaces in Berkeley, and he starts building his army. The SLA isn't like other radical groups. It's not the Black Panthers, not the Weather Underground. It's smaller, more cultish, more violent. The core members are mostly white, middle class, college educated, and that's the irony. The Symbionese Liberation Army, led by a black ex-con, is mostly made up of privileged white kids playing revolutionary. There's Nancy Ling Perry, a Berkeley grad, former library worker, turned radical. She's tiny, barely over 5 feet, but she's fierce. Devoted to Cinque, Patricia Soltysik, called Ms. Moon. She's educated, articulate, a true believer. Then there's Bill and Emily Harris, a married couple. Bill is a former Marine. Emily is a speech therapist. They're intelligent, organized, dangerous. Together, these people form the inner circle, and they're not interested in peaceful protest. They want revolution, violent, immediate revolution. Before Patty Hearst, the SLA makes headlines with one act. November 1973, they assassinate Marcus Foster, the superintendent of Oakland schools, a black educator. Why? Because he proposed a plan to issue student ID cards, which the SLA saw as fascist. It's insane logic. Foster is a progressive, a community leader, but to the SLA, he's a tool of the oppressive system. They shoot him with cyanide-laced bullets. He dies. The murder shocks the Bay Area. Law enforcement starts hunting the SLA, but the group goes underground, hides, plans their next move, and their next move is Patty Hearst. Why Patty? Simple. She's a Hearst. The name alone is worth millions. The SLA wants attention, wants to expose the ruling class, wants ransom to fund their revolution, and they want to humiliate one of America's most powerful families. So they stalk her, watch her apartment, learn her routines, and on February 4th, they strike. 3 members, Cinque, Nancy Ling Perry, 1 other. They break in. Chaos erupts. Stephen Weed tries to fight back. They beat him savagely, drag him outside in his underwear. Neighbors see it happening. One even approaches, asks what's going on. Nancy points a gun at him, tells him to back off. He does. Patty is thrown into the trunk of a car, screaming, terrified. The car speeds away, and just like that, an heiress disappears. The next morning, the story explodes. The Hearst family releases a statement, offers cooperation with law enforcement. The FBI takes over. This isn't just a kidnapping, it's domestic terrorism. Agents flood Berkeley, interview neighbors, collect evidence, but the SLA is already gone, moved Patty to a safe house. And what happens to Patty in the next 57 days is where this case gets truly dark, because the SLA doesn't just hold her, they break her, rebuild her, turn her into something else. Or do they? That's the question we're still asking. Let's go inside that closet, because that's where Patty spends the first weeks of her captivity. A tiny closet, barely big enough to lie down. Blindfolded, bound, no light. No space, no sense of time. The SLA members take turns guarding her, interrogating her. They call her a prisoner of war, tell her she represents the capitalist class, the enemy. They play mind games, tell her the FBI is surrounding the building, that if there's a shootout, she'll die, that her family doesn't care about her, that they're more worried about their wealth than her life. Day after day, hour after hour, sleep deprivation, sensory deprivation, constant psychological pressure. Patty is 19 years old, sheltered, naive, and now she's trapped in a nightmare. The SLA records her, forces her to make statements. On February 12th, 8 days after the kidnapping, the first tape is released. Patty's voice, shaky, scared. She says she's okay, that she's being treated according to the Geneva Convention rules for prisoners of war. It's surreal. The SLA is treating this like a war. Patty is a hostage, but also a propaganda tool. They demand ransom, not money for themselves, food for the poor. They want the Hearst family to fund a massive food distribution program in the Bay Area. Millions of dollars worth. Randolph Hearst scrambles. He's desperate to get his daughter back. He organizes the program. People free in need. PIN. They distribute food in Oakland, San Francisco. Long lines, chaos. The program is a disaster. Food gets trampled. Fights break out. It's not enough. The SLA demands more, and they keep Patty more tapes. Patty's voice changes, hardens. She starts criticizing her family, the establishment. She sounds different. Is it fear? Is she reading a script? Or is something deeper happening? On April 3rd, 57 days after the kidnapping, the world gets its answer. A bank robbery, Hibernia Bank in San Francisco. Security cameras capture it all. 4 armed robbers, masks, guns, coordinated, professional, and one of them is a woman with long dark hair, holding a rifle, sweeping the room like she's done this before. The FBI reviews the footage, enhances it, and there's no doubt it's Patty Hearst. The same day, the SLA releases another tape, Patty's voice, but now she calls herself Tania, named after the girlfriend of revolutionary Che Guevara. She denounces her family, her former life, says she's joined the SLA, that she's a soldier in the revolution, that she'll fight until death. America is stunned. Is this real? Is Patty Hearst, the kidnapped heiress, now a terrorist? Or is she being forced? The debate begins immediately, and it will rage for years. Let's analyze what happened in that closet, because this is where the case becomes a psychological puzzle. Experts later call it coercive persuasion, brainwashing, thought reform. It's a process, and the SLA used it methodically. Step 1, isolation. Cut the victim off from their identity, their support system. Patty is blindfolded, closeted, no contact with the outside world. She doesn't know if her family is looking for her, if the FBI is close, if she'll ever escape. Step 2, dependency. The captors control everything: food, water, bathroom breaks. Patty depends on them for survival. They become her entire world. Step 3, dread. The constant threat of violence. The SLA tells her she could be killed in a raid, that her life is worthless to the system, that she's alone. Step 4, indoctrination. They feed her their ideology over and over. Lectures about capitalism, imperialism, the evils of her family. In her disoriented state, it starts to make sense, or at least resistance starts to feel futile. Step 5, the most controversial. They rape her. Patty later testifies that Cinque and another member sexually assaulted her. Repeatedly, she's traumatized, broken, and in that broken state, the SLA offers her a choice: stay a prisoner or join them, become Tania, become a revolutionary. It's not really a choice, it's survival. Stockholm Syndrome. Some call it a psychological response where hostages bond with captors, identify with them, defend them. But is it that simple? Some psychiatrists say yes. Patty was brainwashed, coerced, not responsible for her actions. Others disagree, say she was weak, privileged, looking for an identity, that she embraced the SLA because it gave her purpose, made her feel important. The debate is fierce, and both sides have evidence. The bank robbery changes everything. Now, Patty Hearst isn't just a victim, she's a fugitive. The FBI adds her to the most wanted list, charged with armed bank robbery. The manhunt intensifies. Law enforcement tracks the SLA across California. Tips pour in. Sightings. Leads. Most go nowhere. But the SLA is active. They rob another bank, attempt a bombing, stay in the headlines. And Patty is with them, carrying weapons, living underground. On May 17th, 1974, the FBI gets a break. The SLA is hiding in a house in Los Angeles. Compton, a working-class neighborhood. SWAT teams surround the house, demand surrender. The SLA refuses. A shootout erupts. It's televised. Live. Millions watch as bullets fly. The house catches fire. Smoke billows. The heat is so intense, firefighters can't get close. For hours, the standoff continues. Finally, the shooting stops. 6 SLA members are dead, burned beyond recognition. Tsinke, Nancy Ling Perry, Patricia Soltysik, 3 others. The nation watches the bodies being carried out, and everyone asks the same question. Is Patty inside? Did she die in the flames? For agonizing hours, the answer is unclear. Then the FBI confirms. Patty Hearst wasn't in the house. She's still alive, still on the run. Turns out, Patty wasn't in LA that day. She was in the Bay Area with Bill and Emily Harris, watching the news, watching her comrades die. Later, she'll say she felt relief, but also guilt. She's alive, they're not. And now, it's just the 3 of them, the Harrises and Patty. They go deeper underground, move constantly, change identities, grow increasingly paranoid. The FBI is closing in. Informants are everywhere. For over a year, they evade capture, but they're running out of options, out of money, out of allies. On September 18th, 1975, the FBI raids an apartment in San Francisco, and they find her, Patty Hearst, Tania, the fugitive heiress. She's arrested, handcuffed, photographed. In the photo, her fist is raised, a revolutionary salute, and when asked her occupation, she says, urban guerrilla. The trial of Patty Hearst becomes a media circus, one of the most watched trials of the decade. The question isn't just whether she robbed a bank. That's on camera. The question is why. Was she coerced, brainwashed, or complicit? Her defense team is led by F. Lee Bailey, one of the most famous lawyers in America. His strategy is clear. Patty is a victim. She was kidnapped, tortured, raped, brainwashed. She had no choice but to comply. He brings in psychiatrists, experts on coercive persuasion. They testify that Patty suffered from traumatic neurosis, that her actions weren't voluntary, that she was under duress. The prosecution sees it differently. They argue Patty had chances to escape, that she didn't take them, that she willingly participated in crimes, that she only claimed victimhood after getting caught. The evidence is murky. On one hand, Patty was clearly traumatized. The closet, the assaults, the constant fear. On the other hand, witnesses testify she seemed committed, enthusiastic even. During the robbery, she wasn't passive. She gave orders, covered the room, acted like a trained operative. After the robbery, She stayed with the SLA, didn't flee, didn't call for help. The prosecution hammers this, says if she was truly a victim, she would have escaped. Patty takes the stand. It's a disaster. She's evasive, defensive, refuses to fully cooperate. She pleads the Fifth Amendment repeatedly. It makes her look guilty, like she's hiding something. The jury notices, and on March 20th, 1976, they deliver their verdict. Guilty. Patty Hearst is convicted of armed bank robbery, sentenced to 7 years in federal prison. The sentence shocks her supporters. They argue the verdict is unjust, that Patty was a victim, not a criminal. But the law is clear. Even under duress, certain actions are crimes. The judge is sympathetic but firm. Patty serves nearly 2 years. In 1979, President Jimmy Carter commutes her sentence. She's released. In 2001, President Bill Clinton grants her a full pardon. But the questions never stop. Was she brainwashed? Or was she complicit? Did the SLA break her? Or did she embrace them? Patty herself has told her story, written a book, given interviews. She maintains she was a victim, that everything she did was to survive, that she had no choice. Some believe her, others don't. Let's look at the evidence on both sides. For brainwashing, the closet, the isolation, the sensory deprivation, the rapes. These are textbook coercive tactics. Patty was 19, sheltered, psychologically vulnerable. Experts say in those conditions, anyone could break. The mind protects itself. If compliance means survival, the mind complies. Stockholm Syndrome is real, documented. Patty's transformation from heiress to Tania fits the pattern. Against brainwashing, the bank robbery, Patty's behavior, she wasn't passive, she was active, aggressive, competent. After the robbery, she stayed, didn't run, didn't call for help. Even after the LA shootout, she remained loyal to Bill and Emily for over a year. If she was truly brainwashed, wouldn't the spell break at some point? Wouldn't she flee? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Both can be true. Patty can be a victim and still be guilty. Trauma doesn't erase agency. Coercion doesn't eliminate responsibility. The law recognizes this. It's why the verdict stood. But morally, it's murky. Because how much choice did Patty really have? If you're threatened with death every day, if you're assaulted, if your identity is systematically destroyed, can you still be held fully accountable? It's a question without a clean answer. And that's what makes the Patty Hearst case so enduring, so controversial. It forces us to confront the limits of human will, the fragility of identity, the power of fear. Let's talk about the aftermath. What happened to everyone involved? The SLA members who died in the LA fire. 6 of them. They're martyrs to some, terrorists to others. Their families mourn, but the public moves on. Bill and Emily Harris. They're captured along with Patty. Tried. Convicted. Emily serves 8 years. Bill serves 8 years. They're released in the 80s. Live quietly. Avoid the spotlight. Patty marries her bodyguard, Bernard Shaw, in 1979. They have 2 daughters. She rebuilds her life, acts in a few films. John Waters casts her in several movies. A strange twist. The former fugitive becomes a cult icon. She stays out of politics, stays private, rarely discusses the case. But when she does, her story never changes. She was a victim, forced into a nightmare, did what she had to do to survive. Randolph Hearst, her father, stands by her, spends millions on her defense, her legal fees, her appeals. He never stops fighting for her. He dies in 2000, never fully recovers from the trauma. The kidnapping breaks something in him. The Hearst family closes ranks, protects Patty, rarely speaks publicly about the case. It's a scar they carry privately. The FBI considers the case closed. The SLA is dismantled. The surviving members are prosecuted. Justice is served. in their view, but the public remains divided. Polls show Americans split almost evenly. Half believe Patty was brainwashed, half believe she was complicit. That division persists today. Let's talk about what the case reveals. About power, about class, about gender. Patty Hearst is white, wealthy, beautiful. That matters. Imagine if she'd been black, poor. Would she have gotten the same sympathy, the same legal defense, the same presidential pardon? Probably not. The case exposes the privilege baked into the justice system. The media coverage reinforces it. Patty is portrayed as a tragic figure, a damsel corrupted, but others in the SLA? They're villains, terrorists. No nuance, no sympathy. The double standard is glaring, and it's gendered too. Patty is seen as weak, manipulated, a victim of stronger personalities. The assumption is she couldn't have chosen this because she's a woman, a young, sheltered woman. Would a man receive the same benefit of the doubt? It's worth asking. The case also reveals our obsession with transformation stories. The heiress becomes a terrorist. It's cinematic, irresistible. We love stories where someone becomes their opposite. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The good girl gone bad. It taps into our fears. If Patty Hearst can be turned, can anyone? Are we all that fragile? That suggestible? The answer is probably yes, and that terrifies us because it means we're not as in control as we think, that our identities, our beliefs, our loyalties can be reshaped under the right conditions. The Patty Hearst case is a mirror, and we don't like what we see. Here's what haunts me about this case, and maybe it haunts you too. We'll never know the full truth. Patty Hearst is the only one who knows what really happened in her mind, and even she might not be sure. Trauma fractures memory, changes how we perceive the past. She might genuinely believe she had no choice, and she might be right, but she also might have convinced herself of that to cope, to live with what she did. The human mind is self-protective. It rewrites history to preserve sanity. So when Patty says she was brainwashed, she might be telling the truth as she knows it, but that truth might not be objective. It might be a story she tells herself, a narrative that makes sense of the chaos, and we'll never be able to separate the two. Let's talk about the SLA itself, because they're the real villains here. Whatever you think of Patty, the SLA is indefensible. They kidnapped a teenager, held her captive, assaulted her, used her as a propaganda tool. And for what? They accomplished nothing. Marcus Foster is dead, a good man, a community leader, murdered for a student ID proposal. The food program was a chaotic mess, helped no one. The robberies funded nothing but their own survival. The SLA didn't fight oppression. They embodied it. They were a cult, led by a violent narcissist, filled with privileged kids playing revolution. They had no real ideology, no plan, just violence and rhetoric. And in the end, 6 of them died in a fire for nothing. Cinque, or Donald DeFreeze, is a tragic figure, born into poverty, failed by the system. But that doesn't excuse what he did. He wasn't a revolutionary. He was a criminal who wrapped himself in radical language. He manipulated vulnerable people, convinced them to commit violence, led them to their deaths. He's not a hero. He's a cautionary tale about charisma without morality, about ideology without humanity. The SLA is a stain on the history of American radicalism, a reminder that not all resistance is righteous, that violence in the name of justice is still violence, and the victims are rarely the oppressors. So where does that leave Patty Hearst? 50 years later, she's 70 years old, living a quiet life. She's written her story, given interviews, but mostly, she's stayed out of the public eye. And maybe that's the kindest thing we can do. Let her be. She's served her time, been pardoned, suffered enough. Whether she was victim or accomplice, she's paid a price. Her reputation is forever tied to this case. Her name is synonymous with kidnapping and controversy. She can never escape it. Google her. This is what you find. Not her art, not her family, not her life, just the 77 days that defined her. That's a kind of prison too. The Patty Hearst case doesn't have a satisfying ending. There's no clear villain, no clean resolution, just ambiguity, trauma, questions without answers. And maybe that's the point. Not every story has a moral. Not every mystery gets solved. Sometimes we have to sit with the discomfort, with the not knowing, because the truth is, human beings are complicated. Trauma is complicated, coercion is complicated, and the line between victim and perpetrator is often blurrier than we'd like to admit. In the end, the Patty Hearst case is a story about power. Who has it? Who loses it? Who exploits it? The SLA had the power to kidnap, to terrorize, to break a young woman. Patty's family had the power of wealth, of lawyers, of influence. But Patty herself, she had no power. She was 19, sheltered, vulnerable, and she was thrown into a situation no one should face. Did she make choices? Yes. Were they free choices? That's the question. And it's a question that haunts every victim of coercion, every survivor of trauma, every person who's ever had to do something terrible to survive. We want to judge. We want clear lines, good and bad, innocent and guilty, but life doesn't work that way, and the Patty Hearst case proves it. So what's the legacy? What does this case teach us? First, that identity is fragile, that under extreme conditions, anyone can change, can be broken, can become someone they never thought they'd be. Second, that wealth and privilege don't protect you from trauma. Patty Hearst had everything, and it meant nothing when armed radicals kicked down her door. Third, that the justice system struggles with complexity. It needs clear verdicts, guilty or not guilty, but reality is messy, and sometimes both are true. Fourth, that we're all vulnerable to manipulation, to coercion, to ideologies that promise meaning and deliver destruction. The SLA preyed on that, and they're not the only ones. Cults, extremist groups, abusive relationships, they all use the same tactics, and they all leave scars. From the night Patty Hearst was dragged from her apartment to the moment she raised her fist in that infamous photo, we've watched a young woman disappear and someone else take her place. We've seen how a terrorist group manipulated her, how the FBI hunted her, how the legal system grappled with her, how the public judged her, and we've learned that the truth is elusive, that the line between victim and villain is razor thin. That trauma reshapes us in ways we can't always control. The case still divides us, still sparks debate, and maybe it always will, because it asks a question we can't answer. Not definitively, can a person be held responsible for actions committed under duress? And if not, where do we draw the line? Patty Hearst was sentenced, pardoned, released, but in some ways, she's still captive to the story, to the judgment, to the question of who she really was in those 77 days. Tania the revolutionary, or Patty the victim? Maybe she was both. Maybe she was neither. Maybe the truth is buried somewhere in that closet in 1974, in the darkness, in the fear, in the moment when a young woman realized she might not survive and decided to become someone else, someone who could. That's the haunting truth of the Patty Hearst case, that sometimes, to survive, we sacrifice who we are, and we can never fully get it back. If this case left you questioning everything you thought you knew about identity, trauma, and justice, you're not alone. The Patty Hearst kidnapping remains one of the most complex and controversial cases in American history. But it's not the only one. Next time, we're diving into a case where the captor wasn't a terrorist group, but a seemingly extraordinary man who held women captive for over a decade. A story of survival, resilience, and the dark side of suburban normalcy. You won't want to miss it. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and let's keep unraveling the mysteries that shape our world. Because in cases like these, the truth isn't just stranger than fiction. It's more complicated than we ever imagined. Thanks for watching, and remember, the line between victim and survivor is one we walk every day. Sometimes, just getting through is the bravest thing you can do.